Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Dr. Maggie Wray from Creating Positive Futures Academic Coaching, where we're on a mission to help students develop the time management, organization, and study skills that they need to earn better grades with less stress. And a huge part of the stress most students experience is the college process. This is not something we work on with our students, but it is something that's really important to them and to helping set them up for success. So that's why we host this Your Teen Ready for College Success series every summer, and we get to interview some of the top people in college admissions, in psychology, in parenting, SAT prep, scholarships, financial aid, all sorts of things that are really important for students to understand, because when you understand how the process works, you can navigate it so much more successfully and with so much less stress along the way. So we've been talking a lot about strategy, and I also think it's really important to talk about logistics, how to actually get this done and put all the nuts and bolts in place. And one of the things that's important to think about is when you actually sit down to fill out your applications, what does that look like? What are the things you need to keep in mind? And for a lot of students, that means filling out the common application. And so I wanted to have someone actually talk with us about the specifics of how do you do that and what do you need to be paying attention to, because there are some nuances to this that are important to keep in mind that can help make sure that you're putting your best foot forward when it comes to actually submitting those applications. So I'm excited to be here today with Jeannie Borin, who's going to be talking with us about how to complete the common application. Jeannie founded College Connections in 2003. She's a recognized expert on the college admissions process who's appeared in so many different media outlets. I can't even really list them all, but it includes the Huffington Post and Time and CNN, the Wall Street Journal, Fox Business, the Associated Press. College Connections has a lot of different consultants based around the country. And 98% of their students have been accepted at one of their top 3 colleges. So I'm really excited to have Jeannie with us today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to talk about this topic because the common application, I think, is just becoming more and more common, more and more typical that students are going to be filling that out with at least one of their colleges. And I am curious, for parents who aren't as familiar with it, how common is it exactly? How many colleges are using this now?
There are over 750 colleges in the United States that use this. Every state has a college represented, I believe, other than North Dakota. And there are 50 international universities in 19 countries that also accept the common application. It is widely used.
So chances are that if you're applying to college, you're going to have at least one school that is using the Common App. Are there any schools that maybe parents might be familiar with that don't use the Common App and that wouldn't be something they would accept?
Absolutely. There are some very highly selective schools such as MIT, Georgetown, the University of California has their own application. The Applied Texas has their own application. University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. University of Washington, Seattle. So there is a way to do a college search on the Common App to see if your school is on the Common App, which we will be reviewing shortly.
Yes.
And if it is not on the Common App, then you go to the school website and you can fill out the application there. And there are other alternatives for applying as well.
Okay, great. Now, if there's a school that has both options, I've seen this with some schools where they'll have the Common App as an option, but then they also have a school-specific application. Is there any reason to use the school's application or the Common application? Are there preferences basically that the school might have that they kind of want you to be using one or the other application, or do they really not mind either way?
Actually, they do not mind. If the school is on the Common application, then the college will accept it. The thing students need to remember is that if they are applying to a specialty program, such as a performing arts program, an engineering program, a BSMD program, oftentimes there'll be a secondary application that will not be on the Common application. And if that is the case, then they would go to the college's website and learn about that secondary application and probably work it from the school's website.
Okay, that's interesting. So would the Common App have a link to that typically where they have the supplemental questions, or would that be a totally separate thing they need to look up on their own?
It really depends on the school. A lot of the schools do have the link on their writing supplements. However, there are some that do not. And to be thorough, the student should investigate the college's website also.
Okay, that's really great to know, because some students might just be assuming that everything's going to be on that Common application website. And if there's something that's not on there, you don't want to miss it. So I'm glad you mentioned looking at the website as well, because that's a step I can imagine a lot of students missing.
Mhm.
So I'm curious for families who are thinking about applying to a Common App school, at what point does this application open up and allow them to start filling it out?
Every year, the Common App will go offline for a month in the summer and generally will relaunch on August 1st for that season. However, about a year or so ago, Common App implemented what they call rollover. That means that a junior, or even a younger, but I don't recommend it, could begin to fill out the basic demographic information on the Common App and create an account with a username and password. And then when it goes offline, it goes offline, but when it returns, they can reactivate their account. But what students need to keep in mind that there are certain things that will not roll over. This is very important to consider. So if they work on, let's say, their activity resume or their writing section, they really should be working on that on separate documents, simply because some of that information will not roll over. And then, of course, the colleges have the option of changing their essay prompts and making changes to their requirements. So I do advise, if a student wants to roll over their application, to fill out the demographic information to save them time, but not get too specific until August 1st, when their season will launch.
Mm-hmm. And that's August 1st of their senior year. That's when you'd
That's
actually
correct.
be filling in the activities and all the details. So by demographics, actually, I know we were going to walk them through specifics. And for those of you who are watching, this is a little bit different from our normal standard way of doing things. We wouldn't normally do screen sharing, but I wanted to, because what Jeannie's talking about here is so visual. So I want you all to actually see what she's talking about. So here's, I'm just going to share my screen really quickly. Is that showing up for you, Jeannie?
Yes, it's great. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. So this is the main Common Application page that Jeannie was just saying. You log in and you can set yourself up an application. I'm going to show you my back end practice one. So yours is not going to say practice account on it because you're not going to be a practice. You're going to be a real person. But this is kind of what it would look like. So where you were saying.
Yes, that is the main page of the main part of the Common App. It's important that students become familiar with the gray links at the top that say dashboards, My College's Common App, and College Search. And of course, the financial resources are just that, a list of resources your family may or may not need. Okay, basically when I was referring to demographic information before, you can see in the gray box on the left, you've got your profile, family, education, testing, activities, and writing. Now, in saying that, some students will not have completed their testing. They can leave that blank. Remember, you're not submitting yet. You're just filling out, and you can go in at any time and make changes. So that is something to remember. Also, if you notice under personal information, you'll see little red asterisk marks next to certain items. When you see a red asterisk, that is required information. So you will need to answer all those questions. And again, you can always return. They're going to be asking you for your counselor's information and so on. So you may have to collect certain information, but in this way, you can at least fill out what it is you do know. I also want you to note in the upper right, you see the word preview. And after you complete any page, you can click on that and see what the colleges will see. So that is a really, really good tool to make sure that everything does fill in properly, that nothing is left out, that you're not writing too much, and so forth. So that is all very, very important. So yeah, that's really about it on the basic dashboard. We can move over now to the My Colleges link at the top. Okay, well, we already have some,
Sorry, don't want to mess it up.
No. What we want to do is look and see, for example, once you enter a college, I'd like to do that first, actually. Let's go to College Search. Let's do that first. It's a little more chronological. Okay, so let's say you're deciding that you want to apply to Cornell University in upstate New York. It asks for a lot of information here, but truly all you need to do is put in the word Cornell where it says college, city, or name. Let's try that. And then you scroll down and you'll see search and hit that. And if your school is on the Common Application, it will pop up, as you can see it has there. You check the box next to the university and you add it. Now that school is on your My Colleges list. All right, that's how you basically search your schools. Now, if you pushed, looked up MIT or the ones I mentioned earlier, Georgetown, you won't find them here. That will easily tell you, oh, that school is not on the Common App. So that's a real quick time saver in doing a search to see which schools are on the Common App. So that's an important feature. So if you go back now to My Colleges link at the top of the page where it says My Colleges, you will see on your left all the schools that have been added, and you can see that Cornell is there. So we will come back later and look at the specific writing supplements, but I would like to walk you through the main Common App first. Why? Because all the colleges where you apply will see the main Common App. So let's look at that. Let's go back there to the Common App link. Okay, and let's now go to, we don't really, I mean, profile family is going to be very unique, obviously. Education is, you need to put in all your secondary school education. So if you went to 3 high schools, you need to put them all in. Even if your transcript shows all the schools, they want to know where you went from 9th grade forward. Okay, so that's important. Again, I said testing for now. You have an option of reporting the scores here or not. Reason being, one, there are, about 900 schools right now that are test optional. So students may choose not to put in their test scores. Okay, remember these are self-reported, and if a school requires test scores, you must send them officially from either the College Board website or the ACT website. So that then it's considered official. Here it is just self-reported. And of course,
so would you want to do that then, Jeannie? If you're going to send them the official score report, is there any advantage to filling in your score here as well, or would you just leave that blank?
I would fill it in if my scores were great.
Okay.
You know, I mean, if you're not sure and you're applying to some, especially if you're applying to some test optional schools, you may choose to not fill this in. So what I usually suggest is let's wait until all the testing is over and then let's look at everything. Because as you know, there's score choice. Some schools will want all scores. Some schools will let you choose the scores. Some schools will super score, which means they take the highest from each sitting. So this is a page I kind of leave toward the end before we make the final decisions about submission.
That makes sense.
Okay, move on to activities. This is an important page. This gives you, the student, a chance to really show, and I use the word show, the side of themselves. It's one thing for a student to say, I want to be a doctor someday, but then they're telling that they want to be a doctor someday without having mentored in a lab, volunteered at the Red Cross, or done things, showed their interest. Very important. So this is the page where this is filled out. Now, we work with students, and if anybody's interested, they can certainly get in touch with us, and happy to share and talk to you about this. We share with students a template that they work on as a rough draft. When the template is complete in a final draft, they use it to give to those writing recommendations, because after all, a student may be in an English class and ask their English teacher for a recommendation, and the teacher knows them from class, but may not know the volunteering they've done, the organizations they belong to, the stuff they did over the summer, their personal interests. And so this gives them more insight about the student that they may include in their recommendation letter. So it's a very important document, and we work on it and polish it before anything is written in here. Now, when it is written in here, you can see that we have activities. Now, the Common App will hold up to 10 activities. And a student will come to me and say, oh my gosh, I only have 5 activities. Is that okay? You know, and yes, it is. Because the most important thing here is, one, like I said, to show your interests, and 2 is to show depth and continuity. So, you know, if you volunteered at a food pantry one semester in the 10th grade, you may not choose to write that down. It was just a one-shot deal. But, you know, something that like Future Business Leaders of America, or if you're in the journalism club, things like that, that really go from 9th sometimes to 12th, and to show that you're moving up the ladder. In other words, if you start journalism club as a member in 9th, and by senior you're the editor, I mean, that really shows that you're moving upward, and colleges really like to see that.
So would you put those as separate activities then, if you started as just a member in 9th grade and then you move up to editor, or would you put that all under one journalism
I would put it as one.
Okay.
Because what you'll see below is they will let you choose the activity, as you're pointing out.
I'm just going to pick an example. So let's just say it was really journalism.
And the position could be, at this point, you only have room. The position here might be editor 12th or something like that. That's kind of how I would indicate it. But what you want to do is, in your description, you have room probably for about 150 characters, which, if you don't know, is a letter, a space, or a punctuation. And so, you know, you think, oh my gosh, I've done something for 4 years. I have to slip into just a few characters. So maximizing space on the Common Application is crucial. And again, you can preview this to make sure that the colleges will see what you're writing. But here you would write, oh, let's see, describing the activity, create agenda. You don't need full sentences here. Delegate responsibility, plan, interview students, whatever it may be that your specific responsibilities are. In other words, you don't want to write the function of a club or organization. You need to write about your part in it. Because that's what the students are that's what the admission officers are interested in. They are interested in your part and what you have done specifically to as part of a certain organization. So very important to remember that.
Would this be, and this is a silly, very small point, but would this be in present tense or past tense?
This is a good question, and I'm glad you brought it up. What I say to students is that if they are continuing something through 12th grade, write in the present tense. Why? It's current, it's now, it's happening. Something that you did in 10th or 11th even that you're not continuing would be past. You've been there, done that, and that's okay. But again, if you did something in 9th and 10th, the flag may go up and say, well, why didn't they continue this? So if you're replacing it with something else, that's good. But you want to, in a brief description, let's say you had you're an athlete and you had a major injury, or something happened and you just couldn't continue, or you joined another club instead, or it was a time conflict, or whatever it is, you need to explain if you leave an activity. Again, now the timing of participation you can see below. You want to check all the grades of participation, of course, and then the when you participated is simple to figure out. And kids always have this issue about hours spent per week. It's sometimes a guesstimate. Theater productions, rehearsals, can go way into the wee hours.
Right, but that's just when you've got a production going on. And then if you don't have a production going on, you might not be doing as much at all. So what do you do if you've got a really inconsistent activity like that?
I have students average. So, there are 40 weeks in a school year. It's the same with athletics, because soccer season is only, maybe in the fall. So I usually have them average, and it really is clarified. If they don't want to put average, they could put, let's say, 10 hours a week, but then below it, the number of weeks that they participate.
Right, I see.
So that would also explain it. Okay?
That makes sense.
Yes. Now, again, participating in college needs to be carefully thought out as well. I mean, if you're volunteering at a senior home in your neighborhood, you may not be able to continue that in college. Whereas if you're a theater enthusiast that wants to be in college productions, you want to continue that in college. So you need to think this out. And again, it's the opportunity to show them your interests. So that's how that works. So then I just want you to scroll down. Can you scroll down a little bit here?
Mm-hmm.
It says continue, and you can see, or wait, before you push that,
Yeah.
you see where it says add another on the left?
I do.
Okay, that would be for your second activity. Now, the good news is that the Common App lets you rearrange the order.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so you can fill this all in, and then if you decide activity number 5 really should be activity number 2, you see that red arrow next to activity number 2? That will let you go up or down. So that's a nice thing. Now, the order is something we work on too, because I really like students to list in order of interest. In other words, something you've done for the longest period of time where you have the most interest, and then scale down. So that's really how I like to do it. But again, everything is done on what we call a brag sheet. And then we go over it, we polish it, we make sure that you're maximizing space, and then later on when you're filling this out, it saves a whole lot of time. Oftentimes this really can't be completed completely until summer before senior year, because students are doing activities in the summer.
Right.
Or they're in programs, and they want to include these things on their activity sheet. So, and they aren't giving these brag sheets to recommenders until the fall of their senior year anyway. So I'm open for questions. You know, you can certainly email me. I know Maggie will go ahead and give that to everybody. So this is really, in a nutshell, how this page works.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, and it's helpful to know you can move things around, that you can change the titles, and also good to know that this is something you should wait to fill out until later, but not wait to think about the information. You start filling something out somewhere.
I have my 9th
Don't
and 10th
put it in there. Right.
Beginning to work on their rough draft, and we call it a work in progress. So that's pretty much how that is, and we just continue to add to it to see what would be appropriate. I mean, some students say, you know, I take apart and put together computers, but I'm self-taught. Can that go on my activity page? And I say yes. There are a lot of students today who are learning all kinds of Adobe, different programs online, and they want to share what their knowledge is. And it's perfectly okay, especially if they have something to show for it. Like some students I have are building apps. So things like that are things that definitely can go on this activity page.
That's great to know that it doesn't have to be an official school sanctioned activity. It's not like it has to be a club or a sport. If you're not that kind of kid you're not in clubs and sports, but you do a whole lot of learning on your own or informal activities, that kind of thing can go on here as well.
And there are many socialization activities that go on outside of school as well.
Right. Right.
You know,
are there any other things
art schools, students have different theater classes they do, and there's just a lot of different kinds of programs that they want to include. So it's important.
Absolutely. What would you say to a student who just says, well, but I don't do anything. I don't have any activities. There's nothing to say. I go to school and I go home and I'm just a boring person. I've got nothing to put. Actually,
I get that, but it's not true. It's absolutely not true. Gosh, I don't even know, over thousands under my belt already with regard to helping students. And I will say, I have heard this, and we uncover things. It's really quite amazing. But again, they do have some free time, and some of them are real study hounds, but they do have other interests, and there are other things that they do. And we just uncover what those things are. You know, I've uncovered amazing journals they've kept, and, you know, different kinds of things that, and they really are kind of a writer in disguise, so to speak. You know, so there are different kinds of things that you need to feel comfortable with the student and then be able to get them to share with you. And we also sometimes bring parents in, because sometimes parents can remember things the students don't.
That's true. That's true.
You know,
Well,
and parents always say, well, how can I be involved in this process? And there are definite ways to encourage, you know, without nagging. You know, that's where we come in.
yeah, exactly. Well, and I'm wondering too, what about the things that maybe they did a while ago? So it's because they're maybe a bit short on activities. Is there a point at which it's not really appropriate to go back, and you wouldn't want to say this one thing you did one time in ninth grade? Or how do you decide the cutoff of what's appropriate to include and what's not?
College is really, as you can see, the grade level is 9 through 12. They don't want to know about what you did in middle school. Okay. So it's really ninth grade is definitely the point at which they begin to discuss their activities. And, you know, I mean, that's really just the way it is.
So if it was just one time, I went to one community service event on the summer of ninth grade and it was 1 week for 2 hours. I mean, is that kind of thing? I'm assuming you wouldn't want to include, but maybe.
Well, sometimes what we can do with that, if there are other community service, we can kind of wrap it in together.
Oh, okay.
There's ways to combine certain things. So we look at that as well as a possibility, you see. So it's so individual. I mean, we really have to, you know, dissect, you know, what they bring to the table.
Exactly. Well, and for those students out there who are the opposite and they've got too many activities, just keep in mind you can only have 10. So you'd want to list your 10 that are the most impressive.
There's an option, which I'm going to show about in a minute.
Oh, really? Okay.
Let's go to the writing page. I'll show you.
Let's do that then. Good.
Okay, so what this page is where the personal essay and the additional information comes in. All right, so you can see that Maggie listed on this mock Common App all these colleges and which ones do require the essay and which ones do not. All right, most of them will. So again, I urge every student to work on their personal essay on a separate document. We work in Word, Google Docs, you know, whatever will work for the student. And I mean, we're amazingly ethical. I mean, this is 100% the student's voice, 100% the student's topics. We engage them in core discussions about their topics because, after all, nobody has lived their life, nobody has had their experiences, and there are ways to isolate experiences. That means if a student wants to write about some sort of travel experience, they don't have room in a maximum 650-word essay to write about their entire travel experience. However, if they're a passenger in a vehicle and they look out the side and they see something out the window on the side of the road and it makes an impact on them, that's what they can write about. It's
You've really got to get micro. You've got to zoom in on an experience, a specific
Why? Because you know, the essays, the grabber, and then the middle paragraph is the story, which isolates. And then the third would be how you'd be an asset to the college, you know, how you're future oriented. In other words, the accomplishments are something that the student has already done. The colleges want to know what they're going to do with their knowledge and what they're looking at for their futures. So that would be more closure. So again, there's not a whole bunch of room to tell a story, and isolating visually and descriptively is really the way to go. Writing in the present tense where possible, all of that is very important. For example, if you're asked to write about a person who's made an impact on you, you're not going to write the whole essay about that other person. You're going to write maybe 2 or 3 sentences about that person and then write about the inspiration, the impact, the lessons learned, and so forth. Here are the choices the students have. And oftentimes I'll show adults these and they find it difficult.
It's a hard thing to write about yourself.
No question. These are all self-reflective. When I go to conferences and I speak with admission officers, the one thing I hear over and over is measuring character is virtually impossible. It's so difficult. They do not meet students face to face. And so they are looking for sincerity, authenticity, and character in these essays. They already know your accomplishments. They already know what courses you've taken. This is all sent to them in your transcripts and other parts of the application. This will give this, should give the admission officers that, that your life is an inside job, that what makes you tick, that is what we want to do. So they did recently add this past year, the last one, which is topic of your choice. So if we don't have a prompt that, really sticks, then we can always go to topic of your choice. But the way we work this is basically we brainstorm topics. And of course, having been doing this now for 15 years, I have seen topics all kinds, and so have admission officers. If they're common topics, I usually will veto them because, again, we want to isolate what is unique about that student and how relevant that would be to people reading it, how you will be an asset to the school. I do suggest putting another pair of eyes on the essay. If you don't have a consultant, or your counselors in high schools hopefully would have time for you, but sometimes they do not. So, and of course, people like us definitely would be helpful in that situation. Definitely have somebody else, it could be a parent maybe, give you some input. Although this, we share everything with parents except the essays, which I let students share with the parents. Because, I've had students write about some, divorce situations that weren't comfortable, and they may not have been felt okay about sharing with parents. So that's really up to the student. And I give them that liberty and independence to make that decision. So I do know, I think, Maggie, you've got somebody else working on the specifics of essays, but there's so much to go over.
There is, I know, there's a lot to go over. So we'll dive into that a little bit more as well. I did want to emphasize, though, there's another piece down here about the additional information.
Right, that's where, exactly right. The additional information, you mentioned before the 10 items for the activity resume. However, the student has 14. Okay, that they really want the colleges to know about. This is where it goes. This will hold, as you can see, a maximum of another 650 words. We save this for last. We see what you have not mentioned on your application that you want to. And we don't want to repeat anything on this application. No duplicates. So, for example, if you write something on the activity resume, you don't want to write about it in your essay. Unless you're going to take a different angle and really elaborate. But the additional information would be for those additional items, or let's say you had to miss a semester of school for personal reasons. You may want to explain that here. Extenuating circumstances, additional resume items. Save it for last.
That's great advice.
That's how I look at that. Now, we haven't done the writing supplements, and I would like to go back to that.
I would too. I'm curious, just before we totally swap screens, is this section, the courses and grades, do you always have to do that? Because don't they get your transcript as well? And they can't see this because I haven't filled out the education screen, but if you had, you'd see, I believe, if I'm remembering this correctly, there's all the detailed information about what courses you took, what grades you got. Do students always have to enter that, or is it only some schools that require you to fill that out?
Again, it's school specific. There are, I believe, oh gosh, unless they've changed for this season, USC was one of those schools that on their writing supplements, they wanted you to list courses and grades, even though they're getting the transcript. But, things filter into the admission office. They may want to see it on one document. It's all very school specific.
I've just seen students be surprised by that, where they say, wait, aren't they getting my transcript? Why do I have to enter all these details about all these classes?
It's annoying.
It takes a while. Just be prepared for this.
Right. What else becomes a little annoying is that this is called common application. And yet the main part is common to all the colleges on your list. But the writing supplements are not. And there's certain schools like Stanford wants 3 extra essays. And schools want additional writing, and this makes it not common because writing supplements are specific. So you go back to your college list, and then you go to the specific school. Now, understanding on the writing supplement, only that college will see what is on the writing supplement. So where Maggie has Brown highlighted, Brown is the only one that will see this part of the application. So again, they have another 250 word essay, and what I call, and I'm happy to share this article too if anybody wants to email me for it. What do you hope to experience at Brown through their open curriculum? It's like, why Brown? Invariably, colleges will ask, why Duke? Why Cornell? Why Purdue? Why I call it the why question. And you must distinguish their college from any other without telling them what they already know.
You have a pretty campus. You have great professors.
Good faculty. I mean, first of all, you can find that in hundreds of places, and you must be specific. So there is a skill to answering this question. It's usually a very short word count. And again, this is done on separate documents. Now, I just want to brief students on the way we do this. On a separate document, I have students go through their list in their college file, and what they will do, they will copy and paste all of the prompts for the different schools.
So you need to copy this,
in one document, and put it in another document. That way they can say, well, this is what Brown is asking. This is what Columbia, Bucknell, Cornell, this is what these schools are asking. Where are the overlaps? For example, some of the schools may say, select an extracurricular activity and elaborate. Now, that's a common question that does not have to be school specific. So you have it done on a separate doc. When it's all polished and ready to go, you can upload it. Okay, so that is an important feature again. I mean, it's a really, really overwhelming process, and to be ultimately organized is the absolute key. And we do it again through Excel sheets, through all kinds of things that will help students, just really submit pristine applications. Okay,
and this is a little confusing because you got questions here, but you've also got questions up here. So
yes, you've got to do it all.
Oh, okay, goodness. Okay, so this is general. This is almost like the demographic kind of information, the basic stuff, start term.
That's right. That's right. Again, you see the red asterisk, which is required. Right. Okay, now.
They put activities on here, though. That's odd.
I know.
So you're going to have more stuff about activities.
Well, they're little essays. See, there's one right there.
Which is not in your writing supplement. So you might think, oh, I've only got this many supplements. But, oh, look, here's another one, a hidden one.
That's right. So the writing supplements you have to go over every link to see and what the word count is. And again, here is a very typical, as I just mentioned, I didn't even realize it here, prompt that can be duplicated if you write a really solid piece. It can, if other schools are asking the same question. But you must be very careful, because if you're mentioning a school name, you must be vigilant about changing that school name.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You do not want to say, I'm applying to Brown because, and then you submit that to Columbia or vice versa.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I have caught those on occasion. So be very, very careful about that one. Yes. So scroll down. Let's see what else is on here.
Oh, interesting. So a URL, would this be for a website a student has?
There are many, many students today, and we help students with this too, are creating blogs off of WordPress. They're designing their own URLs if they're doing major fundraisers. If they're interested in photography, they're uploading, creating URLs with their photos. And there's all kinds of things that they can include. And admission officers do view these. So it's a digital world, Well, so I might also mention really quickly that we do educate students too on the use of social media in admissions. It's crucial now. Every college has every social channel that you can think of, from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the different Snapchat, is it WhatsApp, Snapchat? Anyway, they have them all. And so you can keep track of very current events that the colleges are involved in, which is also impressive if you're talking about specific programs, that you're being thorough. You
That
know,
makes sense.
yeah, you didn't slap them on the list, a month before the application's due, right?
Do you recommend students submitting a resume? Because it looks like this would be a PDF type resume, because they already have their activities. So would they put a resume as well, or is that overkill?
I will, well, you don't want to duplicate. If they've already added on the activity sheet and that's it, I don't recommend that they do this here too. For example, when they can, for example, they're a musician. I have students do musical resumes with all their experience and different kinds of things that they've encountered, solo performances, orchestral, and so forth. That might be where they may want to upload, or theatrical, something different from what they already presented.
That makes sense, but not just to duplicate the same thing.
Yeah.
One thing we haven't touched on at all, and this probably nothing is going to show up, so it's going to be anticlimactic, everybody, but the recommenders, I'm just going to click on this just so people know this is a piece you've got to put in here.
Right.
It
Once
looks
you
like
complete on the main Common App, the education page, which discusses, the schools you attended or attend, you will be able to invite your recommenders via email. So some colleges, again, this is very school specific, and we have a whole spreadsheet for this, which is some schools will want 1 teacher recommendation. Some schools will want 2 teacher recommendations. Definitely, if they want recommendations, they will also want a secondary school report, which is filled out by your school counselor. Now, public school kids, where the average ratio across this country is roughly 500 to 1, they may not know you. You need to make it your business and advocate for yourself. And during a recess break or a lunch break, make an appointment with that person who will be writing for you. Take in that brag sheet. Even if you speak to them for 10 minutes, see what they've got going on in terms of their college office at your school. Be an advocate for yourself, because they will be writing, and personal interest always works. It works better than if they don't even know you at all.
Right, you're just a name on a list. They have no idea what to say about you.
Right, right. So it's important that students really take a step forward there and do what they need to do.
And what is FERPA, by the way? Because just since
FERPA is a privacy law, and what it means basically is once a student enters college, anyone, including their parents, need to have permission to view the student transcript, notes, any record that the college has on the student. Most students say, sure, my parents are paying for my education. I'll let them see what I'm doing here. But it is a privacy law that once you're able to get on that page, you can either approve or not approve.
What would you recommend students do? Because why is it on the recommenders page in particular?
That's a good question. I don't know exactly why it's there, other than they're trying to condense
and not have 15 million sections.
But it's just another item on there that students would, what it might be is that students have the right to waive permission to see the recommendations or not. So it goes along with privacy. Our recommendation is that they do waive their right to see it. First of all, if they're confident about their high school performance, they don't need to see their recommendation. Plus, it gives the professionals on the inside, on the college side and the high school side, they don't feel that they have to sort of milk anything for the family. That whatever that they're sharing is honest on the inside and very professional. So I recommend that students demonstrate their confidence in waiving their right.
Okay, so if you waive your right to FERPA, then you're not going to see the recommendation your counselor or your teacher submits.
No, FERPA doesn't have anything to do with those.
Oh, it doesn't. Okay.
It's really mostly the parents or anybody else who wants to view the FERPA.
Okay, great. And there's more information here if people want to learn more about it. Of course, the Common App has the little description, and they can click the More button and you can learn more about
Absolutely.
all of that.
Common App is very helpful. So if there's specific questions, you can definitely do that. But I just want to go down now to Brown. There's more questions. Do you see that? Let's click there for a minute. We need to go over these very thoroughly. Okay, so this is, again, a Y Brown kind of essay. Um, and there's 3 here, as you can see. So again, it's another personal question. They're looking to gain insight. We work a lot on what is the intent of the question. Why are they even asking you?
This is a good question, because some of this seems so random. Why do you care about the place I call home?
Right. NYU, for example, asks, what do you like to do on a Sunday? And I often will say, well, why are they even asking you this? You know, generally speaking, a 17-year-old or high school student, they have their time relatively dictated. When they go to school, how long their classes are, what they do on vacation, the parents plan. But when they get to college, they have to make choices with their free time. And colleges want to know, well, how would you spend that? What would you do if you have this leisure time? Again, it gives them insight. So that it's a really good question. And I also learn a lot about students when they answer these questions, which is terrific.
For sure. Well, and I think students learn a lot about themselves. So it's another hidden benefit of going through this process. So
reminding students too that each school, and you can see the list of gray there, will have their own unique supplement. And when students, under the word questions, you see where it says review and submit?
Yes.
Okay. When students are ready to submit to a college,
you won't see this because you won't be a practice person. You'll be a real person, but
that's correct. They will submit through the writing supplement. And then the system will walk you through. There is a fee for the application that the colleges announce. They let you know if anything's incomplete. I encourage students to use that preview button so that they can see what the colleges are seeing before they submit. And the only thing I want to say too is that we have students create college files, and we call it homework on the college, and it prepares them to answer those why questions. So if you're, our average last year was roughly 10, 12, some students had 14 colleges on their list. Okay, so if they're getting the why question, they don't want to start doing the research all at once and condense the work. They just don't produce as good work. So we start out and we have them do homework on the college. What makes this college unique? Is there a certain program they have that other colleges don't have? Is there a certain faculty member that did research on something that they can't find at another school? Brown talks about their open curriculum. Some other schools have it, but not many. And why would that be a good match for you? So there are many ways to answer it, but what happens is when they take notes on the school, then they can go back and look at their notes when they're ready to respond to the question and already have some of the work done before they write that paragraph for the application.
That's
so
really
it
good thinking.
saves time. And they're more thorough about the research they do too.
And it's a lot of schools. I mean, this is a lot you have to get through. If you imagined this, what we just went through with Brown, right, on top of what we just went through with the Common App, and then you keep going down that list, and this is just a whole bunch of schools that I kind of added to just see what they're asking.
I will say another thing we do is we create applied timelines. So I'm sure, well, if you don't know, you should familiarize yourself with all the different ways there are to apply to school, from rolling admission to early action to early decision to restricted early action and so forth. What we do then is we create a timeline. For example, the University of Michigan has a priority deadline of, last year it was Halloween, October 31st. The early decision is November 1. The UC's on another website would be November 30th. So what we do is, well, what do I do first, second, third? And then we divide it into number of weeks before the applications are due. So we don't do a lot at one time because realize, of course, that students also have homework.
Oh, you think? Yes, they might have a few other things to do, all those activities that they put all in that list.
And everything else. But I do tell them to consider college prep as the class without a grade. And as consultants, we are on their team. We only want their success. We want them, win-win. So, but having that somebody in your back pocket, if you hear somebody something at school, if there's too much peer interaction, if you're asked to do things you don't understand, we're certainly available. And it really makes the relationship with parents a lot calmer when they're doing their applications.
Definitely.
Because they have sort of a strict schedule of what needs to be done and when it needs to be done. And parents really can get off, like I said earlier, the nagging track and worrying. And they can also contact us too with their concerns going through this process. It is a family decision.
I'm curious, Jeannie, do you have a general rule of thumb for how far ahead of the timeline? So, because schools are different, and like you just said, there's early and there's regular, and there are all these different timelines, but just general rule of thumb. And if you can't answer this, that's totally okay, because I didn't prep you for this question, but I'm just really curious, if you have a student who has an application deadline, how far ahead of time do you think they should be starting their application process, where they're working on their essays, filling out the Common App? Say it's their first school, how far out should they be starting?
Oh, gosh. Well, to start the process, we start at the beginning of high school because we also do curriculum planning, summer planning.
True. I'm thinking how far out for the application itself.
College.
Right.
I would say at the beginning of 11th, probably, but they need to also, before that, keep in mind the productivity of, definitely, I believe in downtime. So over summer, they definitely require and need and deserve downtime, but they should also have productive activities to show their interests and to and remain engaged. So that is something we work on them. But as far as developing topics, starting to do college research, college visits is something I haven't even mentioned. We have a wonderful...
I know, we could go on for days, really.
I know. I mean, I can just tell you that I have a wonderful Excel sheet that I give families when they go on college visits, have them look for certain specifics that really help, because it can be very overwhelming. Also, how do you review a college website? I mean, you can get sucked into the vortex of all their pages and all the information. Where do I go? What do I do? So we work on that as well. There's a lot of pieces to this. So when you say when start, in earnest with applications, I would say sometime in 11th grade, because they're also doing their standardized testing. Okay. Right. But as far as doing college research and getting your toes wet, I would say even 10th. But I would say that they do need to focus on challenging curriculum in high school and, their grades, preparing for tests. We also help with that with a very, very cost-effective digital practice test that we work with, that students do very successfully. So anyway,
this is a great point. So
the go on and on. I mean,
the answer to that question, what you're making very clear is this is not something where you just say, oh, I haven't really thought about college, let me jump on and fill out my Common App. This is a process where you're really wanting to back up and be thinking mindfully about college from the very beginning. I mean, from 10th grade, even I think from 9th grade, when you're choosing your classes and thinking about what you want to do and what activities you want to pursue, and how you want to approach your test prep, all the stuff you just said is the foundation. And then you're going to get to the point, like we said, August 1st, your Common App opens up. If you want to fill in the demographics before that, go for it. It's going to roll over. And then August 1st, you can start actually filling this out. But all the legwork, you can be doing that ahead of time and typing out that activities, writing.
All the legwork can be on other documents. What I like is when students begin senior year of high school, I like them to have the Common App essay done. I like them to have at least one or two other rough draft essays done, their activity resumes done or brag sheet, their applied timeline, and some of the writing supplement. Colleges can be somewhat fickle, and sometimes they don't release their writing supplement prompts until after school starts.
Right.
So
you start where you can.
Go with their whim, somewhat. But I really like them to go into senior year feeling confident, well prepared. Also, one last thing about recommendations: if you do have a large senior class, you want to have a user-friendly packet for that recommenders at school, and hand them things pretty much after the first week of school and beat the crowd. Generally, teachers do not make extra money to write these recommendations, and they get tired.
Right. And if you're the 20th person who asked them, they may say, no, I don't have time. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly right. And some of them even set limits to how many they will write.
Right.
One other thing I want to add on that, though, some of the colleges will allow supplemental recommendations. Now, that could be somebody from outside the school. It could be a coach. It could be an art instructor. It could be somebody at the YMCA where you volunteered, a mentor of some sort, to write a character reference. And we get those too. I know USC allows it. I definitely say Stanford allows one. So you want to make very sure that your school will allow supplemental recommendation. If an admission office needs to be called, students call. The only office I tell parents to call is the financial aid office. But the students, if you're old enough to go to college, you're old enough to make a phone call. So you should be the one making the call with questions.
Great advice. Great advice. All right. Well, I'm going to stop my screen sharing because I think we've walked through pretty much all the sections here. And just I want to let people know, if I know, Jeannie, you've mentioned multiple times that people can reach out to you all with questions. I'm going to make sure we post your website link right below this interview here so people can follow up with you all, ask for advice, ask for additional information. And then just to encourage you all, we have also a 30-minute consultation for the first 10 people who go to the website and sign up on the contact form with the code, and we're going to post that right below as well. So if you want to get more of Jeannie's insights and information and from her team and their help with the process, that's for the first 10 people, they're going to get that 30-minute consultation with you all as well.
Yeah, we love what we do. I just want to add really quick, that we have an incredible alumni database. Because students stay in touch with us way after the process. And sometimes, parents and kids are visiting a certain college and we have a student there, they will show that family around the university.
Oh, that's so nice.
So we definitely have links to the different schools and we just thoroughly enjoy what we do.
Well, thank you so much. That's really clear from everything you've shared today, how much you love it, how much you know about the process. So thank you for sharing some of your insights with us. And thanks everybody for watching. I hope it was helpful to have a visual overview. It was really, I think, nice for us to get into the behind the scenes of what that Common App really looks like. So thank you for spending your time with us today, Jeannie.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks everyone, and I'll see you soon.